There is a reason why Scorpio has never been an easy sign to live with. Not because Scorpio is too intense, not because Scorpio loves too deeply, and not because Scorpio feels everything at a level most people cannot understand. The real reason is that Scorpio was never meant to live a shallow life. For years, Scorpio has carried a silent question inside. Why does life test me so much? Why do I feel lose more, and transform more than others? Why does love feel like both a blessing and a battlefield? If you are Scorpio, you already know this truth. Your life has never followed the easy path. And yet, here we are in 2026, a year where something quietly shifts. A year where the pain you survived begins to reveal its meaning. A year where being Scorpio is no longer just about endurance, but about recognition. After decades of studying Scorpio energy patterns and emotional cycles, I can say this with absolute clarity. Scorpio is never cursed. Scorpio is prepared. Prepared to see what others avoid. Prepared to feel what others suppress. Prepared to walk through emotional darkness and come back with wisdom. In 2026, that preparation begins to make sense, because this is not just another year. This is a year where Scorpio stops questioning their depth and starts understanding why it was necessary. Being a Scorpio is not a blessing because life was kind to you. It is a blessing because life tried to break you, and instead it forged something unshakable. In this video, we are not here to flatter Scorpio. We are here to explain Scorpio. We will uncover 25 reasons why being a Scorpio is not just powerful, but truly a blessing in 2026. Some of these reasons may feel uncomfortable. Some may feel painfully familiar. And some may finally put words to things you've felt your entire life, but could never explain. As you listen, you may recognize parts of yourself you've kept hidden. If something resonates deeply with you, leave a comment and let me know you're here. Because Scorpio energy was never meant to be understood alone. Now let us begin with the first truth Scorpio had to learn the hard way. Reason number 1. Scorpio's depth was never a burden, it was training. One of the greatest misunderstandings about Scorpio is this: people believe their emotional depth is a weakness. They say Scorpio feels too much, that they take things too seriously, that they cannot simply let things go. But what most people fail to understand is that Scorpio's depth was never meant to make life easier. It was meant to make Scorpio stronger. From an early stage in life, Scorpio is exposed to emotional intensity that forces growth, loss, betrayal, silence, transformation. These experiences are not accidents. They are the training ground of a soul designed to see beyond the surface of life. While others learn how to survive comfortably, Scorpio learns how to survive truthfully. This depth teaches Scorpio something rare: how to sit with discomfort without running away, how to face emotional truth without denying it, and how to transform pain into insight rather than resentment. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because while shallow strength collapses under pressure, Scorpio's strength has already been tested and refined. Scorpio does not fear emotional darkness because they have lived there and returned with awareness. This is why Scorpio becomes a guide, a protector, and a source of quiet wisdom for others, even when they never asked for that role. The life lesson here is simple but profound. What forced you to grow is not what damaged you, it is what prepared you. If you are Scorpio, your depth was never the problem, it was the foundation. Comment if this resonates with you. And as we move forward, the next reason reveals why Scorpio's intensity, especially in love and loyalty, is both feared by others and misunderstood by the world. Reason number 2. Scorpio was given intensity because half-truths were never enough. Scorpio was never built for halfway emotions. What others call too intense is simply Scorpio's refusal to live a diluted life. Superficial connections feel unbearable to Scorpio because their soul recognizes when something lacks truth. This intensity shows up everywhere: in love, in loyalty, in pain, and even in silence. Scorpio does not attach lightly, and they do not detach casually. Every emotional investment is deliberate, measured, and deeply personal. Life teaches Scorpio early that shallow bonds break easily, so Scorpio learns to seek depth even if it costs them comfort. This intensity becomes a blessing in 2026. Because in a world addicted to convenience, Scorpio becomes one of the few who still knows how to commit fully to people, to values, and to purpose. The life lesson here is: profound depth may limit the number of people who stay, but it ensures that those who do are real. Scorpio does not need many connections. Scorpio needs meaningful ones. Comment if this resonates with you. And yet intensity alone is not what makes Scorpio exceptional. The next reason reveals why Scorpio's loyalty is both a gift and a line that should never be crossed. Reason number 3. Scorpio's loyalty is rare because trust is sacred. Scorpio does not trust easily, and that is not by accident. Trust for Scorpio is not an assumption, it is an achievement. Before Scorpio opens emotionally, they observe, they listen, they feel what is unspoken. This cautious nature often comes from early experiences where trust was broken. Promises were empty, or emotional safety was not guaranteed. Instead of becoming careless, Scorpio becomes discerning. When Scorpio finally gives loyalty, it is absolute. They protect what they love fiercely. They stand their ground when others walk away. And they remember who stood beside them when it mattered most. In 2026, this loyalty becomes a blessing. Because in times of uncertainty, Scorpio becomes the one people rely on, not because they are loud, but because they are consistent. The life lesson here is clear: loyalty is not about attachment, it is about integrity. Scorpio teaches the world that trust is earned through actions, not words. And once broken, it is not easily repaired. Comment if this speaks to your experience. As we continue, the next reason will uncover why Scorpio's emotional intuition, often misunderstood as suspicion, is actually one of their greatest strengths. Reason number 4. Scorpio's intuition was sharpened by what they survived. Scorpio's intuition is often misunderstood as suspicion, but intuition in Scorpio's case was not inherited, it was developed. Life placed Scorpio in situations where words did not match actions, where promises sounded sincere but intentions were hidden, where emotional danger was subtle, not obvious. So Scorpio learned to read energy instead of excuses, to listen to tone instead of explanations, to notice what people avoid saying, not just what they say. This is not paranoia, this is pattern recognition. By the time Scorpio reaches emotional maturity, their intuition becomes precise. They sense shifts before they are visible. They feel emotional distance before it becomes obvious. They recognize truth long before it is spoken out loud. In 2026, this intuition becomes a blessing. Because Scorpio no longer uses it to protect themselves from pain, they use it to choose wisely. The life lesson here is powerful intuition is what develops when you are forced to rely on yourself. Scorpio does not guess. Scorpio knows. Comment if this resonates with you. And as intuition sharpens, it leads Scorpio to a deeper realization that not everyone deserves full access to their heart. Reason number 5. Scorpio learned the power of boundaries the hard way. Scorpio does not close their heart because they are cold. They do it because they learned what happens when boundaries are ignored. Early in life, Scorpio often gives too much. They forgive too quickly. They stay longer than they should. And each time the lesson becomes clearer. Not everyone who wants access deserves it. Not everyone who feels familiar is safe. And not every connection is meant to be permanent. So Scorpio learns restraint. They become selective with their energy, intentional with their time, protective of their emotional space. To outsiders, this can look distant, but in truth, it is wisdom. In 2026, this becomes a blessing. Because Scorpio no longer confuses endurance with loyalty. They understand that protecting their peace is not selfish, it is necessary. The life lesson here is essential. Boundaries are not walls, they are filters. Scorpio does not shut people out, they let the right ones in. Comment if this reflects your journey. As we move forward, the next reason will reveal why Scorpio's relationship with pain, something many fear, became the very source of their emotional strength. Reason number 6. Scorpio's relationship with pain became a source of power. Most people spend their lives trying to avoid pain. Scorpio was forced to understand it. From an early age, Scorpio learns that pain cannot always be escaped, ignored, or softened. Loss arrives suddenly. Emotional truths surface without warning. Endings happen without closure. Instead of running, Scorpio stays present. They sit with grief until it teaches something. They examine heartbreak until it reveals patterns. They allow pain to transform them instead of hardening them. This is where Scorpio becomes different. Pain does not weaken Scorpio, it initiates them. Each emotional trial deepens their self-awareness. Each difficult ending strips away illusion. In 2026, this becomes a blessing. Because Scorpio no longer fears emotional discomfort. They know that growth often arrives disguised as difficulty. The life lesson here is rare and profound. Pain is not punishment, it is information. Scorpio learns faster because they feel deeper, and what once hurt them now strengthens their emotional intelligence. Comment if this resonates with your experience. As this strength grows, Scorpio begins to notice something else. An unusual ability to sense transformation before it happens. Reason number 7. Scorpio is built for transformation, not stability. Scorpio was never meant to remain the same. While others search for comfort and predictability, Scorpio is repeatedly pushed toward endings, rebirths, and inner shifts. Jobs end. Relationships evolve or collapse. Identities shed their old layers. At first, this feels unfair. Why does Scorpio have to change so often? Why does life keep pulling the ground out from under them? Because Scorpio is ruled by transformation itself. Each ending teaches Scorpio how to release. Each rebirth teaches them who they are becoming. Each collapse removes what was no longer aligned. In 2026, this finally makes sense because Scorpio stops resisting change and starts trusting it. The life lesson here is transformative stability is not always growth and change is not always loss. Scorpio thrives when they allow evolution instead of clinging to what is familiar. They become powerful not by holding on but by knowing when to let go. Comment if this mirrors your life path. And as Scorpio embraces transformation, the next reason will reveal why their emotional resilience, often unseen by others, is one of their greatest hidden strengths. Reason number 8. Scorpio's emotional resilience was built in silence. Scorpio does not advertise their strength. Most of it was built quietly away from recognition. When life becomes heavy, Scorpio rarely asks for rescue. They withdraw. They process. They rebuild themselves internally before the world ever notices. This silence is often misunderstood as distance or coldness, but in reality, it is where Scorpio regains control. Instead of reacting impulsively, Scorpio learns to regulate intense emotions. They reflect before they respond. They observe before they speak. Over time, this creates a rare form of resilience, one that does not rely on validation or external reassurance. In 2026, this becomes a blessing. Because while others depend on constant support to stay grounded, Scorpio has learned how to stabilize themselves from within. The life lesson here is subtle, but powerful. True resilience is not loud. It does not seek attention. It simply endures. Scorpio survives storms without announcing survival, and that quiet strength becomes unbreakable. Comment if this resonates with how you've learned to cope. As Scorpio becomes emotionally self-sufficient, another truth begins to surface. Their presence alone carries authority. Reason number 9. Scorpio commands respect without demanding it. Scorpio does not need to dominate a room to be felt. There is something about their presence that naturally establishes boundaries. They speak when necessary. They observe more than they reveal. They carry themselves with a calm intensity that others instinctively respect. This authority does not come from control. It comes from self-awareness. Scorpio understands their own emotional depth, strengths, and limits. They know who they are and who they are not. In interactions, this creates a subtle but undeniable influence. People listen when Scorpio speaks. They hesitate before crossing a line. They sense that manipulation will not go unnoticed. In 2026, this becomes a blessing. Because Scorpio no longer needs to prove themselves. Their consistency speaks louder than explanations. The life lesson here is clear true authority comes from alignment, not force. Scorpio teaches that power does not require permission. It emerges naturally when you are grounded in truth. Comment if this reflects how others respond to you. As we move forward, the next reason we'll explore why Scorpio's approach to love, often intense and uncompromising, is one of the most misunderstood blessings of all. Reason number 10. Scorpio loves with total presence, not convenience. Scorpio does not love to fill a void. They love to build a bond. When Scorpio commits emotionally, they are fully present. Their attention is undivided. Their loyalty is intentional. Their care is constant, even when unspoken. This depth of presence can feel overwhelming to those who are used to casual affection. But for Scorpio, love without presence feels empty. They notice details others overlook. They remember emotional shifts others forget. They stay engaged long after the novelty fades. In 2026, this becomes a blessing. Because while many relationships weaken when effort is required, Scorpio's love becomes stronger. The life lesson here is meaningful. Real love is not measured by intensity alone. It is measured by consistency. Scorpio teaches that being emotionally available even during difficult moments is what turns attachment into trust. Their love is not loud, it is reliable. Comment if this reflects how you love. And as Scorpio's devotion becomes clearer, the next reason reveals why their expectations in love, often seen as demanding, are actually rooted in self-respect. Reason number 11. Scorpio refuses shallow love because they know their worth. Scorpio does not settle, not out of arrogance but awareness. They have experienced emotional depth too early in life to pretend that surface-level connections are enough. Flirtation without substance feels hollow. Promises without action feel insulting. Affection without loyalty feels unsafe. So Scorpio becomes selective. They would rather be alone than misunderstood. They would rather wait than compromise their emotional standards. They would rather lose a connection than lose themselves. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio no longer questions whether their expectations are too much. They understand that standards are not obstacles, they are protection. The life lesson here is empowering. Knowing your worth will cost you access to some people, but it will attract the right ones. Scorpio's refusal to accept shallow love creates space for relationships that are honest, grounded, and enduring. Comment if this resonates with your values. As we continue, the next reason we'll uncover why Scorpio's ability to see through people often mistaken for judgment is actually a form of emotional intelligence. Reason number 12. Scorpio sees through illusion because they learned the cost of ignorance. Scorpio does not live comfortably inside illusions. They have learned often through disappointment that ignoring truth is far more painful than facing it. This is why Scorpio develops an unusual ability to see through people. They notice inconsistencies. They sense emotional gaps. They recognize when behavior and intention are misaligned. What some call overthinking is for Scorpio clarity earned through experience. They are not searching for flaws. They are searching for truth. In relationships, this makes Scorpio discerning rather than naive. They do not rush into emotional commitments. They observe patterns before trusting promises. In 2026, this becomes a blessing because Scorpio no longer doubts their perceptions. They trust what they sense without needing external confirmation. The life lesson here is essential clarity protects more than denial ever could. Scorpio understands that truth may be uncomfortable, but it is always liberating. Comment if this reflects how you perceive people. And as Scorpio sharpens their ability to see clearly, the next reason reveals why their emotional intelligence quietly sets them apart from others. Reason number 13. Scorpio's emotional intelligence was forged through experience, not theory. Scorpio did not learn emotional intelligence from books. They learned it from life, from navigating complex relationships, from enduring emotional conflict, from observing how people react under pressure. These experiences taught Scorpio how emotions truly function, not how they should function in theory. They understand emotional timing. They know when to speak and when silence is more powerful. They recognize when reassurance is needed and when space is essential. In 2026, this becomes a blessing because Scorpio becomes a stabilizing presence for others. They bring emotional clarity into chaotic situations. They help people feel seen without being overwhelmed. The life lesson here is quietly profound. Emotional intelligence is not about controlling feelings, it is about understanding them. Scorpio's depth allows them to connect without losing themselves and to support others without absorbing their burdens. Comment if this mirrors how you navigate emotions. As we continue, the next reason, we'll explore why Scorpio's independence, often mistaken for detachment, is actually a form of emotional sovereignty. Reason number 14. Scorpio's independence is emotional sovereignty, not detachment. Scorpio values independence because they learned early that emotional survival cannot depend on anyone else. This does not mean Scorpio rejects connection. It means they refuse dependency. They are capable of deep intimacy, but they will not lose their identity to maintain it. They can love fully, but they will not abandon self-respect to be chosen. This independence is often misread as emotional distance. In truth, it is emotional sovereignty. Scorpio knows that relying too heavily on others creates vulnerability without protection, so they build inner stability first and invite others in second. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio no longer apologizes for needing space clarity or autonomy. They understand that emotional freedom is what allows love to remain honest. The life lesson here is grounding true connection does not require self-erasure. Scorpio teaches that intimacy is strongest when two whole individuals choose each other, not when one disappears to keep the bond alive. Comment if this reflects how you protect your independence. And as Scorpio masters emotional sovereignty, the next reason reveals why their self-control, often invisible to others, is one of their greatest forms of power. Reason number 15. Scorpio's self-control is the result of inner mastery. Scorpio feels deeply, but they are not ruled by impulse. What others do not see is the discipline Scorpio develops behind the scenes. They learn when to react and when to wait, when to speak and when silence carries more weight, when to act, and when restraint preserves power. This self-control is not suppression, it is mastery. Scorpio understands the consequences of emotional reactions. They have seen what happens when intensity is unmanaged, so they learn to channel it with precision. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio no longer wastes energy on chaos. They choose intentional responses over emotional reflexes. The life lesson here is profound. Real power is not the absence of emotion, it is the ability to direct it. Scorpio's calm is not emptiness, it is containment. And that containment turns intensity into influence. Comment if this speaks to how you've learned to control your emotions. As we move forward, the next reason will uncover why Scorpio's relationship with ambition and purpose, often hidden beneath emotional depth, is a key part of their blessing in 2026. Reason number 16. Scorpio's sense of purpose emerges from inner conflict. Scorpio does not discover purpose through comfort. They discover it through confrontation. Inner conflict forces Scorpio to question everything: their values, their desires, their direction in life. While others follow paths handed to them, Scorpio feels compelled to find meaning on their own terms. This internal tension is not accidental. It sharpens discernment. It strips away false ambition. It reveals what truly matters. Scorpio learns that chasing approval leads nowhere. Only alignment brings fulfillment. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio stops asking, "What should I do?" and starts asking, "What feels true?" The life lesson here is clarifying purpose is not found by avoiding conflict. It is revealed by moving through it consciously. Scorpio's direction becomes clear once they stop fighting who they are and start honoring what they know. Comment if this reflects how you found your sense of purpose. And as Scorpio aligns with meaning rather than expectation, the next reason reveals why their ambition is different from everyone else's. Reason number 17. Scorpio's ambition is driven by depth, not ego. Scorpio does not seek success for appearance. They seek it for impact. Their ambition is quiet, focused, and persistent. They do not rush. They do not announce their plans. They build patiently beneath the surface. This depth-driven ambition often goes unnoticed at first. But when results appear, they are undeniable. Scorpio understands that real achievement requires endurance, strategy, and emotional resilience, qualities they have cultivated their entire lives. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio's goals are no longer reactive. They are intentional, measured, and aligned with inner values. The life lesson here is empowering ambition fueled by purpose lasts longer than ambition fueled by comparison. Scorpio does not need to outrun others. They need to stay true to their trajectory, and when they do, progress becomes inevitable. Comment if this matches how you pursue your goals. As we continue, the next reason will uncover why Scorpio's relationship with success and recognition, often delayed but deeply earned, takes on new meaning in 2026. Reason number 18. Scorpio's success arrives later because it is built to last. Scorpio is rarely rewarded early. While others experience quick wins, Scorpio often watches progress unfold slowly, sometimes painfully so. This delay is not punishment, it is refinement. Scorpio is taught patience through resistance. They learn strategy through obstacles. They develop resilience through repetition. Each delay strengthens their foundation. Each setback clarifies their intent. Each test removes shortcuts that would have weakened the outcome. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because when success finally arrives, Scorpio is ready to sustain it. The life lesson here is humbling and powerful. What arrives slowly is often meant to stay. Scorpio does not peak and fade. They rise, stabilize, and endure. Their success is not accidental, it is inevitable. Comment if this reflects how your progress has unfolded. And as Scorpio's long-term efforts begin to show results, the next reason reveals why recognition, once unnecessary, takes on new meaning in this phase of life. Reason number 19. Scorpio no longer seeks validation, and that changes everything. For much of life, Scorpio feels unseen. Their depth goes unnoticed. Their effort goes unrecognized. Their sacrifices remain quiet. At first, this hurts. But over time, it teaches Scorpio something crucial. Approval is unreliable. Validation is temporary. Only self-respect is permanent. Scorpio learns to measure success internally. They trust their own standards. They stop explaining themselves to those who cannot understand. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio no longer depends on recognition to move forward. And ironically, this is when recognition begins to appear. The life lesson here is liberating. When you stop seeking validation, you become impossible to manipulate. Scorpio's confidence becomes calm, grounded, and self-sustaining. They do not chase acknowledgement, they attract respect. Comment if this mirrors your personal growth. As we approach the final phase, the next reason will uncover why Scorpio's presence, once heavy with intensity, now carries clarity, purpose, and quiet influence. Reason number 20. Scorpio's influence grows quietly, but it changes people permanently. Scorpio does not seek to influence others. It happens naturally. Their presence alone creates reflection. People become more honest around them, more aware of themselves, more conscious of what they hide. Scorpio influences not through persuasion, but through authenticity. They do not tell others how to live. They simply live in a way that exposes truth. This quiet influence is often underestimated, but it leaves a lasting mark. People may forget conversations, but they remember how Scorpio made them feel, seen challenged, or awakened. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio steps into a phase where their words carry weight, their silence carries meaning, and their presence inspires change without effort. The life lesson here is subtle but powerful. Real influence does not demand attention, it reshapes perception. Scorpio does not change the world by force. They change it by revealing what already exists. Comment if you've noticed how others respond differently around you. And as Scorpio's influence becomes undeniable, the next reason reveals why leadership once avoided now becomes unavoidable. Reason number 21. Scorpio leads best when they stop trying to control outcomes. Scorpio is often mistaken for a natural controller, but true Scorpio leadership emerges when control is released. Earlier in life, Scorpio tries to manage everything: emotions, situations, people, because uncertainty once felt dangerous. With maturity comes a shift. Scorpio learns that control limits growth, but guidance empowers it. They begin to lead by example rather than pressure, by presence rather than authority, by clarity rather than dominance. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio naturally attracts trust. People seek their counsel. They look to Scorpio for direction during complexity. The life lesson here is transformative leadership is not about holding power, it is about holding space. Scorpio becomes most effective when they allow others to rise beside them, not beneath them. This is when Scorpio's strength becomes service and influence becomes legacy. Comment if you've stepped into leadership without forcing it. As we move closer to the final reasons, the next truth will uncover why Scorpio's legacy is not built on recognition, but on transformation that outlives them. Reason number 22. Scorpio's wisdom comes from lived experience, not ideals. Scorpio does not offer empty advice. What they share is distilled from experience, from mistakes made, losses endured, and truths confronted. This is why Scorpio's words often feel heavy with meaning. They do not speak to impress, they speak to illuminate. Their wisdom carries emotional accuracy. It addresses what people are afraid to admit, not what they want to hear. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio enters a phase where their insight is not only respected, it is sought after. Others begin to recognize that Scorpio sees beyond temporary problems into root causes. The life lesson here is enduring true wisdom is not theoretical, it is lived. Scorpio's understanding carries weight because it was earned through transformation, not borrowed from belief systems. Comment if people often come to you for insight or guidance. And as Scorpio's wisdom becomes more visible, the next reason reveals why their legacy operates quietly, yet powerfully beneath the surface of time. Reason number 23. Scorpio leaves a legacy of transformation, not applause. Scorpio is not remembered for being entertaining. They are remembered for being impactful. Their influence does not fade after interaction. It lingers. It changes perspectives. It reshapes inner landscapes. Scorpio's legacy is rarely loud. It lives in moments of awakening. In boundaries, people learn to set. In truths, people finally accept it. In 2026, this becomes a blessing. Because Scorpio realizes they were never meant to be universally liked, they were meant to be significant. The life lesson here is humbling legacy is not built on attention, it is built on transformation. Scorpio does not need monuments or praise. Their imprint exists within the evolution of others, and that impact outlives time. Comment if you've seen how your presence changes people long after you leave. As we approach the final truths, the next reason will uncover why Scorpio's relationship with solitude, once misunderstood, becomes a source of clarity and renewal. Reason number 24. Scorpio's solitude is where clarity and renewal begin. Scorpio does not fear solitude. They understand it. When Scorpio steps back from the world, it is not an escape, it is a recalibration. Solitude allows Scorpio to process without interference, to listen to intuition without noise, to separate truth from emotional residue. This space is where Scorpio sheds what no longer belongs to them. expectations, projections, outdated identities. Others may see isolation. Scorpio experiences renewal. In 2026, this becomes a blessing, because Scorpio learns to use solitude intentionally, not reactively. They no longer withdraw out of exhaustion, but out of wisdom. The life lesson here is grounding. Clarity does not arrive in chaos. It emerges in stillness. Scorpio understands that time alone is not disconnection. It is alignment. Comment if solitude has helped you understand yourself more deeply. And as Scorpio returns from solitude with clarity, the final reason reveals why fulfillment once delayed now becomes undeniable. Reason number 25. Scorpio realizes the blessing was never external. It was becoming themselves. At some point, Scorpio stops searching for confirmation. They stop asking whether life was fair. They stop questioning why the path was difficult. They stop waiting for permission to feel complete. Because in 2026, a realization settles in quietly. Nothing was missing. Every loss refined perception. Every ending redirected growth. Every moment of darkness revealed strength. The blessing was never luck. It was becoming. Becoming self-aware. Becoming emotionally sovereign. Becoming aligned with truth rather than approval. In 2026, Scorpio understands that fulfillment is not something granted. It is something embodied. The life lesson here is profound and final. You do not need to be chosen when you have already chosen yourself. Scorpio was never meant to live lightly. They were meant to live truthfully. And that truth is the greatest blessing of all. Comment if this feels like the chapter you are entering now. Conclusion. If you've stayed until now, there is something important you need to hear. Being a Scorpio was never meant to be easy, and it was never meant to be understood by everyone. Your depth confused people who live on the surface. Your silence unsettled those who avoid reflection. Your intensity challenged those who prefer comfort. For a long time, you may have wondered if something was wrong with you. But in 2026, that question no longer holds power. Because what you've seen throughout this journey is not a list of traits, it is a path of becoming. You were shaped through loss, so you could recognize truth. You were tested through intensity, so you could develop discernment. You were led through solitude, so you could find alignment. Nothing was wasted, and now something changes. In 2026, Scorpio stops shrinking their presence, stops questioning their instincts, stops apologizing for needing depth in a shallow world. This is the year you begin to stand fully inside who you are without explanation, without justification. Not everyone will understand you. They were never meant to. But those who resonate with your presence will feel something real, something grounding, something transformative, and that is your quiet power. If this video helped you recognize yourself more clearly, leave a comment below and share what resonated most with you. Because Scorpio energy was never meant to walk alone. It was meant to awaken recognition in others who have also lived deeply. And if you're entering 2026 with a new sense of clarity, trust it. You are not late. You are not behind. You are right on time. This is not the end of your transformation. It is the moment you finally understand it. If this message spoke to you, if you felt seen rather than entertained, then you already understand what this channel is about. This is not a place for surface-level astrology. It is a space for depth reflection and transformation, especially for those who carry Scorpio energy. If you want to continue exploring what it truly means to live with awareness, intensity, and purpose, I invite you to subscribe. New videos will be shared for those who are not afraid to look inward, who value truth over comfort, and who are ready to understand themselves more deeply. And if you're already subscribed, your presence here matters more than you know. Stay connected. The journey doesn't end here.